Hello and welcome to episode 336 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now, this is a huge episode for me because anyone that listens to Mark and Me will know by now that I absolutely adore the band Thrice. Probably my favourite band on the planet. I've had amazing experiences with this band for almost 20 years. I was lucky enough to interview Dustin, the singer of the band, 3 times. At 2000 Trees a couple of years ago, I got to speak to Ed and Riley, but I've never been able to speak to Teppei. It's just never worked out. So during their tour of the UK promoting the 20th anniversary edition of The Artist in the Ambulance, I was lucky enough to get backstage in Manchester with my good friend Chris to interview Teppei in person. This is the best way that I can ask to ever do an interview in person. And it was magical. The band for me put on the best shows I've ever seen. The album sounded unbelievable. The band really were on it. And it's one of the best times I've honestly seen them play. It was so magical and a day that I will remember forever. And to know I actually got to sit down and talk to Teppei in person truly is a dream come true. So a massive thank you to Thrice, a massive thanks to Hayley for Good as Gold Group, and obviously a massive thanks to Teppei for coming on the show. Also, if you've enjoyed today's episode, it is actually available to watch on YouTube. I've launched a channel only a few months ago, and it's doing really well. So if you love to watch interviews, me and Teppei are backstage in Manchester, with help from Chris, making a video for you all to check out. But today, it's all hopefully about listening to this podcast, and I can't wait to share it with you. So what I think I should do now is to get straight to it. So here's me and Teppei talking all things Thrice. So Teppei, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
Thank you.
I don't know if you know this, but I've been a big fan of Thrice for many years, and I've had Dustin on 3 times. A huge fan of all the work you've done, but then I went and got Ed and Riley when you headlined 2000 Trees. So I feel a bit like the Avengers with the gauntlet, and there was one last stone to get, which was you. It's taken me a long time, but we finally completed the gauntlet, and you're now the final member.
You are now Thanos.
I have now got the power to take over the world.
You can do the snap thing, yeah.
And just see what happens.
Yeah.
But it really means a lot that you've made this work today, and I'm really grateful for your time.
Oh, cheers.
What I do with all the guests that come on the podcast is take it right back to the very start. With all the guests, it doesn't matter if you're an actor, a director, a musician. I'm really interested in what was that first album that you had as a kid. Maybe it was passed down to you or given to you or you bought it with your pocket money. But that first album that you just absolutely loved and basically made you fall in love with music.
It's a hard one to say because I guess I'll just kind of rifle off what kind of comes in my head first.
Yeah.
So I do really remember loving, as a kid, Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You.
An incredible record that sounds timeless.
Yes. And so I don't know what it was about that song, but I loved that song as like a little kid. Another one that comes to mind, and this is maybe a little obscure if you didn't grow up in the 80s, but Paul Young's I think it's just called Every Time You Go Away.
Okay.
It's just, I don't know, 80s kind of ballad song. So those are the first 2 that kind of come to mind. But yeah, I think the first sort of music that I feel like I really found on my own and gravitated towards was maybe Metallica.
Nice.
I would say.
Was it early like Black Album or before?
Yeah, maybe like slightly pre-Black Album, maybe Master of Puppets and then into Black Album. But yeah, I don't know what it was. I used to just stay up super late on Friday or Saturday nights or whatever it was and watch MTV's Headbangers Ball.
That was an amazing show.
Yeah, did you guys have it here?
Yeah, so I was born in 82.
Okay.
So I'm an 80s kid as well.
Yeah, okay.
And MTV2 and MTV, especially Beavis and Butthead with their videos in between, and the Headbangers Ball got me into bands like Smashing Pumpkins, Green Day, Deftones. And it was my basic way of discovering all the bands I listen to now.
Yeah. I mean, that was totally a gateway thing for me too, as a little kid. And I remember my mom would let me drag my mattress out into the living room.
Amazing.
And I would just I would watch Headbangers Ball and fall asleep and
wake up 2 hours later with like Pantera playing really loud.
Yeah, and then just kind of groggily turn the TV off and then go back to sleep. But I think that was kind of my first exposure to heavier music, I guess, or more rock and roll kind of things, and sort of the first music that for whatever reason I kind of gravitated towards on my own.
Was this, I'm trying to like work out like the numbers. What age are you when you're watching these? Is it like a teenager or even younger?
No, younger than that, yeah. Oh geez, I don't know. Maybe like 5th or 6th grade, so
that's awesome.
I don't know how old you were for that, but
like 10, 11 something.
Yeah, something around there. Yeah.
I miss those days. Like I sound like a granddad already, and I don't like doing this on the podcast, but I miss staying up and like watching. In my head I think of the Smashing Pumpkins 1979 video.
Yeah.
With just a tire.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys, Sabotage. And it was just an era of just discovering like Green Day, When I Come Around. Those videos were just timeless. And I remember like no one used the internet, so it was like you go to school the next day and be like, have you heard the band Bush? Like there's a song called Machine Head, and they're like, oh fucking hell.
Yeah, it's different days, man. Yeah, I do miss that. And I kind of feel bad for kids these days that they don't have that. I remember we had in our hometown, we had a little shop called CD Listening Bar. Nice. And so it was a place where you could go in and they had a literal bar of just CD players and headphones. And so you could go in and you can pick up an album and they would open it for you and everything. And you could listen to it. So you can just sit there and listen to records before you bought them. And that was a huge thing for us, I remember. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a totally different time.
It's like, I'm not saying there's a lost art in an album now because everyone still puts their heart and soul in it. But what I would find is because it was my pocket money and I was working really hard, like I'd do a paper round and I'd get like £10 a week. And if I'm going to go and buy an album, I remember in the UK we had like Virgin Megastore.
Yeah.
So I'd go and get like Silverchair and I bought that album. And I would make sure that I fell in love with it. I'd listen to it over and over again.
For sure.
So I'd spent like £12.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to fall in love with this. I would read every lyric. I'd open up all the little booklet and even
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, even if it wasn't a great album, I would do everything I could to just fall in love with it because I'd spent £12.
For sure, yeah. And you had no option of streaming.
No.
Literally everything else in the world that is music at your fingertips. Yeah. So yeah, it's a totally different time, different way of listening to music, to discovering music. And
I mean, you mentioned Metallica, and that's for me an absolutely amazing foundation to start with.
Yeah.
What was it like for live music? Because around the same age as you, actually, at that point, my parents took me to see Green Day.
Okay.
Dropped off, and it was their Dookie tour.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that 3 people on stage made that much noise. Like Basket Case and She and all this. And that's the moment I wanted to pick up a guitar and be in a band. I was like, I want to be like Billy Joe, Armstrong. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first, it might not be one you want to admit, maybe it's like an embarrassing one, but what was your first gig that you remember falling in love with a band?
Ooh, okay. Some of the earliest things I remember going to see Jackson Browne with my parents.
That's awesome.
It's great. Doobie Brothers, I remember seeing with my parents. My parents were pretty into music.
Yeah.
But I think the first like punk show I went to with my friends and kind of on my own was, I want to say it was NoFX.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I was lucky because growing up in Orange County, Southern California, there was punk shows every single weekend.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, once I kind of discovered that, I was going to shows all the time. You mentioned Green Day. I remember seeing Green Day. I think it was at a Virgin Megastore. I think so, yeah. In Newport Beach. It was their like Dookie release
Oh, amazing.
kind of thing, and they put on a free show. And I remember just going there after school.
Again, in stores. What an amazing
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So at what age is it that you're then picking up a guitar, sitting there wanting to learn these songs and tell yourself that this is the route I want to take in life?
Yeah, I guess it would be probably around like that 6th grade-ish era where I was really starting to get into like to metal and Metallica, Pantera, whatever. Yeah, at some point my parents bought me an electric guitar, and that was kind of that.
Did you do the whole kind of battle of the bands school gigs sort of thing where you form with loads of friends, or was Thrice one of the first music things for you?
So Thrice is my first band.
That's awesome.
First and only band.
You've never had a taste of what else there is out there.
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe that's not totally true. I think Dustin and I actually had a band.
Yeah.
Before Thrice. It was Dustin, myself, and a couple of our other friends, and we called ourselves Out of Step.
Are there demos out there that I can find?
No.
I want to hear Out of Step.
And that was named after a Minor Threat song.
Yeah.
But we played one show, I think, in like the parking lot of a coffee shop. And that was that. I mean, I don't think we even had a song that was our own.
So Thrice is your first introduction to being in a proper band.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, Thrice we were a garage band. We were just like a high school garage band.
Yeah.
And yeah, somehow we're still here. I don't know.
It blows my mind when I've had a lot of good bands on recently, like Incubus, like Everclear, bands that have been going for over 20 years. And obviously I'd love to dive really deep about your whole career, but what is it, do you think, that has kept Thrice with the same lineup, which is so rare?
Yeah.
Still 20 plus years later, still hungry, still touring, still giving.
Sure.
I mean, it's people break up in relationships, bands break up all the time, but you guys have just been absolutely solid.
Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think just lucky, really. I mean, I think it helps that we started all as friends,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of, big personalities in the band, I think is what probably helps a lot.
Yeah. You're probably the most humble band I've ever met.
Oh.
All of you.
Oh,
because you're all like, yeah, we're doing okay. I'm like, you're headlining 2,000 Trees,
Right.
You're doing tours, doing a whole album in its entirety. That's a huge compliment. But I suppose being in it is hard to take a step back and see how much you've evolved. Yeah,
it is. But at the same time, we definitely don't take it for granted.
No.
I mean, I fully realize how lucky we are to be here doing what we're doing and to have gotten to where we have gotten. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it boils down to luck. Yeah.
Because I've interviewed you all now, I don't see you ever, I know you went on a hiatus a bit and came back, but because you all have no egos, Dustin can go off and do his solo stuff. You can go off and do all your stuff with your workshop and making leather products.
Sure, yeah.
You've all got your own interests. So it's not like there's this, how dare you take your own music and not include us? I think you could still be here in 20 years doing the 40th anniversary edition of Artists in the Ambulance,
Yeah.
It might
maybe
be a bit harder on stage, but...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I think I can't really speak for everybody in the band, but for me at least, I think a lot of that comes from, like, I don't find my identity in being a member of Thrice.
No.
Yeah, I don't see myself as that primarily. And And so I think maybe that helps, kind of helps you keep grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With you guys as your kind of songwriter, and I know you said you and Dustin had a band at the very start, but then it evolved quickly into Thrice. When you all met and you became this unit of Thrice and you started playing, did you have any expectations as a band? Did you have any goals? Because you're kids at that point, really.
Yeah.
To be fair, did you just want to do as many shows as you could and just see what happens?
Yeah. So I think that's another thing that's kind of like everything has been step by step for us. And we had, like you asked, when did I decide I wanted to be a guitarist? Well, never really, like it never was something that was on my radar. And it was just something that I did for fun. Thrice was something that we did for fun. And every step of the way, it's been like oh, wow. Like, we got together, wrote like 5 or 6 songs, I think. Within 3 months, we went and recorded that.
Yeah.
And that was it. It's out there as the First Impressions EP is what we called it. And unfortunately, it's out there.
It goes for silly money on eBay. I'm part of a Facebook group for Thrice fans.
Okay.
And sometimes someone will post a picture and be like, look what I found today.
Yeah, well, I think we only pressed like 1,000 of them or something. Yeah.
Gold dust.
Yeah. But I remember, getting that and just having a CD and putting that CD in our car stereo and being like, what the heck? Like, this is our music. We just recorded it. We're listening to it in our car on a CD. Like, so every single step of the way, I think, has been kind of like this, wow, I can't believe we did this, It
must be really difficult because when I interview bands, obviously I'm talking to you about you, but the way you've evolved, and I've said this on lots of my interviews when I've interviewed other bands, my favourite bands are bands that really evolve through time with their music.
Cool, yeah.
Some examples would be Radiohead, Paramore. They never play it safe. They evolve with time. And I really truly mean this. Thrice is the best example. If you listen to your early work, and then you even listen to Major Minor, and then you listen to Artist in the Ambulance, and then you listen to Horizons East, you don't sound like the same band, but you are still Thrice. You still sound like Thrice, but you've all evolved as musicians. Your musicianship has taken you in another direction.
Sure, yeah.
And do you make a conscious effort as the person I'm talking to when writing songs to try and not play it safe and try and not sound like the last album, or does it just naturally happen because you're growing as a band?
I think it's more the latter than the former, but it's a little bit of both, I think. I think naturally, at least for us, there's always a little bit of a pushback against what we just did.
Yeah.
Because it just would be a little bit boring, or, you do something and then it's just, I feel like it's almost like anything else. Like you make something and then you go, okay, what's next? Not like I should make the same thing again. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And so, yeah, I think it's just, it's a bit of a natural thing for us.
Because it's not a bad thing for bands that play it safe. But when I buy an album by Green Day or someone, it's going to be quite similar to the last album because it's a winning formula. It's worked.
Right.
So don't change the wheel. It's fine.
Right.
But I want my brain to be a bit more stimulated. And when I buy an album from Thrice, I never know what's next.
Sure,
which
yeah.
is a good thing.
Yeah.
The electric's being brought more into it, more synths. The Rhodes being added in different stuff, especially the Alchemy Index was just like, I don't know how those tracks took me on such a different journey. It showed your capability as a band.
Cool, yeah.
But it's fucking mind-blowing being on the end of a listener thinking, how do they go from Fire Breather to Open Water? And it's astonishing, dude, that you all don't really have any limits. You'll do whatever you take.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Alchemy Index in particular was kind of a unique thing because the whole idea was to take all these elements and these influences that we have and really extrapolate it and push it really far in each direction.
Yeah.
So that kind of allowed us to really go far in each direction, And on top of that, it was kind of an experimental thing from the get-go. Like, we weren't necessarily planning on releasing that as an actual album.
No.
So the whole idea behind it, in the very beginning at least, was that it was going to be this kind of like experimental exercise. And we were going to do these things, and we were going to maybe just put them out as EPs, maybe not even called Thrice. Like, it was kind of this out there thing. And as we were writing for it, we sort of started realizing, oh wait, we're coming up with songs. Like, these are actual songs that are, being put together, not so much like experimental soundscapes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's when we decided, okay, well, maybe we should try and make this the next record. But I think because it started out as that, it was able to be a little more experimental in that sense.
With that, obviously, whole concept, you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were able to engineer, record, and kind of produce it all yourself.
Yeah.
Did that kind of feel like a bit more of a weight on your shoulders because it's mostly you at the desk, with Pro Tools and everything? Are you feeling a lot more pressure because it's your baby, it's your name on it, instead of just getting a band in to do some session work? Are you feeling this extra pressure that you need to get the best out of your own selves?
I mean, again, like, because that was supposed to be kind of a side project almost.
That blows my mind that it might have never even been released.
No, it would have been released, but it would have been like
not Thrice,
or maybe not really like records.
Yeah,
we were imagining it to be a lot more like soundscapes or something. But because we decided that in the very beginning, we decided, well, let's just do it ourselves.
Yeah,
without a producer, so we can kind of do our own thing with it. And so that, even that was something that came from the original idea of not having it be an actual record. Had it been decided that this is our next record from the get-go, I don't know if we would have been like, oh, we can do this ourselves,
And even though I said, as a band, you've been together for over 20 years, taking that break as a hiatus, I panicked. I thought Thrice, because sometimes bands will say hiatus and it's a nice way of saying we're gone forever. It's just a nice way to say we're broken up. Do you think that was really needed to kind of then, you don't know what you've got until it's taken away? Did it make you miss it and kind of then come back with, I think the opening track to the album then was Hurricane. Did you kind of want to, did you really appreciate everything that you had more because it was taken away?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah. I think maybe me personally more than the others, I kind of like found a different life outside of music and Thrice and was sort of thriving in it. And so, yeah, I missed it at times, but I was also really just busy living my life. And so I was kind of just chilling. My family had moved up north to Washington.
Yeah.
And we were living on this small island near Seattle, and it was just this really slow, very different lifestyle. And I was kind of loving life, but definitely, coming back into it and starting to play shows again. That's kind of what like reawoke the whole thing, is that we played a few shows and it was feeling good. And I think, like you said, we all kind of started realizing what we had missed in the last few years, and so that naturally just kind of evolved, and we started writing music, and I was like, all right, well, here's the next record,
And the way you guys have grown, I mean, what I look at is always, when you get on Facebook and stuff like 10 years ago and it gives you a memory and all this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've seen you play smaller venues in like Birmingham at the Academy number 2, and then it's Academy number 1, and I keep seeing you grow. So at festivals, I've seen you go on the second stage, then the smaller stage, then the next stage, and then it's the main stage. And as a big fan of your band, it feels like, yes, these guys are getting the kind of recognition they deserve. I couldn't believe it when I got to see that it was 2000 Trees 2 years ago, and the announcement was Jimmy Eat World, and I was like, wow, like one of the best bands ever. And then you guys and Turnstile for the next day. And I just thought to myself, they finally got that headline slot, which for me as a fan, I've always wanted to see. I've always thought like this band should headline.
Yeah.
What was it like that time when you got the call and they're like, do you want to come and do this festival in the UK? It's an unbelievable size. It's such a friendly atmosphere. We
Yeah,
want you to headline after Turnstile with thousands of people.
right. I mean, yeah, it's always kind of, I think for us, we're sometimes our biggest doubters. And so we were like, are you sure? Headline? I don't know. I don't know about that. And then especially because when we first confirmed that Turnstile, they were kind of on the up, but they weren't anywhere near how big they actually are now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but then, so that whole thing got postponed because of COVID for, I think, like 2 years or something.
I think
right?
it was, yeah.
Yeah. And so coming back into it, it had kind of flopped. Like Turnstile had gotten really big in that time. And so we were kind of like coming back in, we were like, are you sure Turnstile shouldn't be headlining this? Like we kind of were trying to be like, we'll play support and they could headline. Like they're really big now. So we were a little worried about it, to be honest. But yeah, it worked out. It was fun.
It was incredible. And I remember because you did the album in its entirety, I think you'd already done that tour 2 years prior in America.
Yeah, that was the other thing too, is like, so that was supposed to be, we'd done a full American tour on it. We were going to be practiced. We were going to be in the groove. We are going to fly and do that festival and whatever. It was going to be fine. But yeah, it was kind of crazy because we had to come back and relearn that whole set, relearn all the songs just for that one show. And yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was worth it.
Because you've done this now a couple of times, especially as we're sitting here now, the listeners will know that it's the Artist in the Ambulance 20th anniversary, which is incredible. You did that again at the end of last year in America, and now we've got it in the UK, which is awesome. When you then have to go back and learn these albums again as a band, what's that like in your head? Because you're taking yourself back to those songs that you might have not played for 20 years. You haven't played every album track on tour for the last 20 years. So
yeah.
Is it a challenge because you've evolved, you're in a different mindset, you're a different band? I know Dustin's vocals are no way the same. I know we've got the revisited now, but at the time it was like, he's a completely different singer now.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, it's challenging. I guess each record has its own challenges, but for Artists in the Ambulance in particular, I think more so for myself and Riley, our drummer, it's pretty different.
Yeah.
From how we approach our instruments now. So like, especially for me, I feel like I play the guitar and approach the guitar in a very different way than that record is written. And so yeah, I honestly kind of had to relearn how to play guitar in that way in order to do some of the stuff.
Does your instinct inside make you want to change it a little bit because you've evolved as a guitarist? Are you like, this feels a bit basic, this little riff now? Are you like, I wouldn't mind just adding a bit more in?
No, it's the opposite.
Really?
Oh yeah. These these riffs are like a lot faster, a lot more technical.
Do this every night.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's more technical. It's like, it's more of like an exercise.
Can we
really
just play Beyond the Pines instead?
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, but it's kind of cool because I feel like, and part of the reason for the re-recording is that I think we've changed so much as a band and also as musicians in the last 20 years. And so being able to inject some of these songs with some of the things we've learned along the way, has been cool. It's a little hard to like work that in a song like, Paper Tigers or something that is what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Even a song like Cold Cash and Colder Hearts or Hoods on Peregrine.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of songs I think we could play with a lot more feel and a lot more groove now, which is it's satisfying.
And does it feel like it's been 20 years, or does it just feel like it was only a couple of years ago you were playing those shows?
Yes and no. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
because it blows my mind.
Yeah.
I see the poster and I think, fuck, that's not 20 years.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. But then if I think back, like if I'm trying to remember touring then, or I see photos of us even back then, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
we were just babies, you know?
And with obviously where we're at now, are you allowed to talk about the second part of the Horizons East, Horizons West concept? Because
Yeah.
I had Dustin on the podcast last year,
Mm-hmm.
and he was kind of saying, well, it's pretty much finished. And I was like, okay.
Interesting. Okay.
But then I know that you guys went back and you were still adding and in between touring, doing more. So I'm like, where are we at now with this?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, I can say anything really because we don't have anything.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what he was referring to was that there were 2 songs that we had recorded within the Horizons East sessions that we were planning on putting on West. And then we had some other, song ideas and stuff that we were writing on that didn't quite get hashed out for East that we were going to use for West.
Okay.
But we ended up releasing those 2 songs as singles.
Yeah.
And then I think after having some time away from everything, I think we're planning on more or less starting from scratch.
Okay.
Which I think is going to be good.
So we might never see the West Side.
No. Well, so after this tour,
Yep.
so in a few days, when we fly home, after we kind of settle in or whatever, the next thing that we're going to be doing is writing for West.
But completely from scratch now.
More or less, yeah. There's some ideas maybe that are lingering from the last session that maybe we'll try and revisit. But I think it's been good to take some time off, take a step back, and then be able to approach it fresh.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And outside of the band, obviously I follow you on Instagram. You do a lot of hands-on creative work with guitar straps, wallets, leather work. Do you find that you've got a good work-life balance of being able to do your passion projects as well as Thrice and be a family man and, get the right balance when I'm sure 15 years ago it was, how do I juggle the band? How do I get to do my own stuff? How do I get to be a father or a husband?
Mm-hmm.
Or, do you feel like now you've got the right balance?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we do. Yeah. I mean, it helps that, we're pretty much all fathers now. Ed doesn't have kids, but
yeah.
Yeah, so we're all kind of on the same page, as far as family life. So yeah, we get, we're away a lot, but we also get time at home. And, this time that we've had, I think we've had like 2.5 months maybe or so between doing this tour and then finishing the last US leg of this tour. We didn't do anything, so I just was home.
Weren't you building a guitar? I swear I saw on
yeah,
Instagram you've been making
yeah.
guitars from scratch. I'm like,
yeah,
that's a lot of work.
It is, yeah. But that's like a new hobby I picked up during COVID.
Just start building guitars.
Kind of, yeah.
Are they for yourself, or will you sell them, or are you just doing it for a pure passion project?
So far it's just been for myself, but I'm learning, so it's a complicated skill, and it's not easy to do, and to come up with a product that is good quality is difficult. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe one day I'll sell what I make, but not yet. What I'm making now is definitely, I don't feel comfortable selling it to anybody.
But you're still doing all your leather stuff, all the wallets, all the
guitar
straps?
So the leather stuff, I shut that business down a couple years ago, which is kind of what afforded me the time to be able to start doing other things like making guitars. So yeah.
Does it not? Do you miss it? Do you want to get back into doing it, or?
I think my like creative sort of like hands-on making focus went straight into making guitars. So
I hope that like next time we talk, if maybe you're in the UK in a couple of years, you're like, I've got a whole range of guitars now. I've got like 10 or 15 available.
I mean, maybe, who knows? Yeah, I don't know.
I'll buy one. It'd be fucking awesome.
Hell yeah. Okay.
And what's the next sort of year like for you? Because obviously Dustin's going to be off promoting his solo album.
Mm-hmm.
You did talk then just saying that you're going to be getting back and writing.
Yeah.
But he's going off, isn't he, on tour in April? So are you going to just try and focus on maybe this year getting that album written?
I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Oh, okay. So there's someone with a paper saying you will be recording at this point.
I'm so bad at schedules and scheduling. And timelines and all that. But yeah, I think I believe that the plan is to be recording this year. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how the writing process goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you talked today on the interview about the Alchemy Index, and you were talking about them being sort of soundscapes and stuff, in my head, I thought to myself, would you ever consider doing a soundtrack for a film, maybe a film score?
Yeah.
Because with the instrumental side and definitely your creativity and your way of thinking, especially your guitar and some of the effects you use, I can really imagine you doing a score for a film.
I would love that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So if there's any directors watching today and they want a score doing, I'll take 10%.
Yeah.
But you'd love to kind of do that whole thing. Like
I would.
York's done it, bands.
Yeah, Johnny, yeah. No, I know. Honestly, I would love to. And that was like one thing that even during the hiatus, like, one of the options I kind of considered. But it seems like maybe it's a harder thing to get your foot in the door than you would think, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I sort of explored it for a minute, but I couldn't really find any clear path to go with it, so I didn't do that. But no, it's something that I've always been interested in. I think that would be really fun to try.
Johnny Greenwood's a one of a kind, though. I like to see the smile.
Yeah.
Last year, and I couldn't believe that's their side project. I'm like,
yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
That would be the dream band to be in.
Oh,
but
of
then
course.
You've also got Radiohead. I'm like, how do you do this?
Yeah, it's crazy.
What I do on this podcast, and it's my final question for you today, I try and keep it as original as I can. With every guest that's been on over 7 years now, which blows my mind, they all get the same final question. So
okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot, and people in bands find it the most difficult. But what I try and do is when the interview's all edited and wrapped up for the world to listen to, one song is played at the very end of our interview.
Oh, geez.
And you are going to get on the spot today the question, what song would you love to close today? And it's not going to be a Thrice song. It's not going to be anything you've ever written yourself, but just a song that means something to you, that has a reason to be in your heart before any other one that I've asked. Maybe you've got 50 in your head at the moment, but...
No, I don't. I totally blank.
Complete? Oh, I thought you were going to say you had one.
I know. I'm so bad at these.
I'm not going to edit it either and make it look like you've thought of it straight away.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes of silence, and I just like to know the reason why it came in, or if there's a song that you love.
I'm just going to go with what it just came in my head. There's no plan on this.
Yep.
Blue and Green by Miles Davis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I don't know why. I love the song. And Kind of Blue is one of my favorite records of all time.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, it truly is.
Bill.
That.
I don't know why. I was not expecting you to pick a Miles Davis track.
Yeah, I don't know. It literally was the first thing that came to mind. So, but yeah, I mean, Bill Evans is one of my favorite piano players of all time.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant piece. It's a beautiful recording. So, yeah.
I want to thank you because obviously I said at the start of today's interview, it's all about timing in this world. I've realized the older I get, it's not always got to be about, this needs to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could have grabbed you for 10 minutes at 2,000 Trees, but it would have been a very quick rush, boiling hot. I wouldn't have got to really talk to you properly. But I just want to kind of say thank you because your time is precious. We're backstage here before you go on stage tonight. And I just want you to know how much it means that I've now been able to get all of you on the podcast.
Nice.
And, your time means a lot. And I want you to carry on skateboarding. I want you to carry on writing music. I want you to make guitars. Stop supporting Arsenal. Is that right? Liverpool. You're a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, I am.
I remember you were a Liverpool.
Yeah.
You went to Arsenal, I think. I think I saw you on Instagram go to Did you go to Tottenham or Arsenal? Or
Tottenham. Yeah. I saw Spurs versus Liverpool at Spurs. Yeah.
Wow.
I had to pretend to be a Spurs fan because I was not sitting in the away section.
Did someone sort you out with tickets and you're like, yes, I definitely support Spurs?
No, we bought them.
Oh, right.
Yeah. My oldest son is a Spurs fan.
Yeah.
So kind of checking two things,
So as a Liverpool fan, and we never talk about football for some reason on this podcast, but how do you feel right now knowing it's Klopp's last year? Are you kind of in fear?
Now just devastated. So sad. Yeah, I mean, obviously a huge fan of Klopp. Yeah, I'm gonna miss him.
I don't like Liverpool. I'm not a massive fan of their football club, and I don't even like football that much. But I can see that it's such a big year for you as a fan.
Yeah.
And I kind of want you just to win it, just so you're all happy and you've got that perfect send-off.
Well, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Teppei. It really means the world. And yeah, I can't wait for tonight, dude.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. So there it is. There's my interview with me and Teppei. Like I've said now, I've completed Thrice. All 4 members of the band have now been interviewed and I couldn't be happier. What a great bunch of guys. How great was Teppei? So open, so honest, and just a lovely guy. An absolute pleasure to sit down and talk to him. A guitarist that I really admire. His work on all of Thrice albums is mind-blowing, and for me he's one of the best out there to do it. I want to say now, again, a massive thanks to everyone that takes the time to listen to these podcasts. It's an absolute dream come true when I get to see so many people enjoying it. Over the last few days, Thrice have actually shared this on YouTube, so the numbers have gone really high, so a massive thanks to those guys. And a massive thanks to Chris, my good friend, for coming on the journey, have an amazing day with loads of adventures, and it really was an experience that I'll never forget. If you've enjoyed today's episode, as always, I'm going to ask, please share it. You can do this on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and it really goes a long way. All the links are on markandme.com, so it's really simple, but the more I see it, it brings more of a bigger audience to Mark and Me. Maybe you've got a friend that grew up listening to Thrice that suddenly sees the picture, they go, oh, I'll check it out, and before you know it, they've subscribed to Mark and Me, and suddenly they're a listener each and every week, and that's something that money can't buy. And if you do have money and want to throw it my way, I do have a Patreon account. I can't do this podcast without it. It basically pays for me to host the podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, go out there and travel to places like Manchester and do these interviews. And basically all the money that goes in there basically means I then go and do more interviews for you guys at home. So it's a win-win. And in return for your money, I guarantee you 2 episodes a week, an exclusive episode just for you guys on Patreon, a newsletter each and every month, a welcome pack where you get stickers, badges and much more, and competitions that are exclusive just for people on Patreon. And just before I go, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of the podcast, Richer Sounds. If you're in the market for a new home cinema, TV, anything to do with audio and visual, go on richersounds.com. I'll be back in only a few days' time with another brand new episode. So until then, look after yourself, listen to Thrice, go and watch my Thrice interview on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
Mm-hmm.